Hello Internet, Alex from Barefaced here with the 210ST, S for switchable, T for tweeted. That's a customisation we now offer, and it's a very unusual cab in a lot of ways. People might superficially think, oh, it's just another 2x10 with a tweeter. Base cabs have been like that for decades, they're all the same. They're not, and this one particularly is unusual in a number of excellent ways, and I'm going to loop a riff so you can hear it without me clattering and I can talk at the same time. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this riff's good because it's covering quite a lot of the frequency spectrum, so you can hear what happens when I move the cab. The 210ST, it's loud that power cord, isn't it? This is really annoyingly difficult to play, but I haven't done it too badly. Listen to how it sounds, like this. Right, so that was the 210S, 210ST. They're the same thing in the low frequencies, and at the moment we have the tweeter set to max, so you're getting maximum tweeteriness. When you rotate the cab, you are changing a few things, right? So, in the low frequencies, you are changing the tuning frequency of the hybrid resonator enclosure. You're actually lowering the tuning frequency. You might think that means more bass, but it doesn't. It actually means deeper but leaner bass. Okay, so you lower the tuning frequency of half of the hybrid resonances. There are two resonances going on in this cab. It's an unusual design. There's another video in that. So we're lowering the tuning frequency, and also you're adding resistance to the port when it's on a surface like this. This is a particularly soft surface, so it accentuates the change, but it happens whether it's on a hard floor or a thick carpet. This is actually spare fake grass that we had, so there we go. Waste not, want not. And that vertical orientation changes the tuning frequency because it lowers the outlet of the hybrid resonator. People think these are ported cabs if they see that thing, which is used as a port in other cabs, but it isn't a traditional port in this. It's the outlet of the hybrid resonator. There's other stuff going on inside the cab. So when we have it here, it's tuned higher, which gives us fatter but slightly less deep lows that you can't really tell that they're less deep, they just sound fatter. When you turn it this way, it tunes it lower. That's the second of the two resonances, gets tuned lower. And that tightens up the lows. So it makes it sound less fat. So that's a negative thing in some situations, but it also makes it less boomy. So it's not that one's better than the other, it's that one suits the environment better than the other. So if the sound in the room with the band playing and the bass you have to be playing through and the amp you're using and the room acoustics mean that it's sounding too boomy, turn it vertical and it tightens up, leans out the lows in a good way. You want to fatten things up, turn it horizontal. Our default orientation is horizontal, that's why we put the badges that way. Some people do choose to use it vertical most of the time and request a custom design with the badge the other way, which we occasionally do, but I would recommend have it that way, turn it vertical if you feel the need. Now with a conventional 2x10, having it vertical works much better in terms of how the mids respond, because the dispersion of a sound source is inversely proportional to the size of that source in the direction we're thinking about the dispersion. So in the case of a conventional 2x10, the wide array here has narrower dispersion and the narrow array here has wider dispersion, so they disperse better vertically and worse horizontally, and that's not very useful because most of our ears are on an approximately horizontal plane as we move around the room. So we will actually want wide horizontal dispersion and we want narrow vertical dispersion because we don't want loads of floor bounce and ceiling bounce, we just want the sound to get to us. The 210S, 210ST as well, and 410, 610, 810 that we make all solve this problem of poor horizontal dispersion by having a crossover in them. So this speaker runs full range and this speaker works in unison with it until it reaches higher frequencies where these two speakers would conflict. So rather than the two speakers attacking each other, conflicting and narrowing each other's dispersion, this speaker is rolled off in the higher frequencies, so this speaker can spread its sound better. And it makes a big difference. And that's why you can use this cab horizontally and vertically with very minimal change to the mid-range and treble response in the room. Just so you know, this is being mic'd by a Rode Video Mic Pro Plus. So it's a decent mic, but it is a mic on the camera, so you're hearing an honest representation of the room. We've done some test recordings and yeah, it's pretty honest. And I felt that was better than something that makes our gear sound amazing, but doesn't actually give you the truth, because I think this is about truth. The other thing that changes is, well, other two things, but they sort of go hand in hand, is the baffle step frequency. So that's the point at which the sound wraps round and goes backwards rather than forwards. So if you make a cab with a really big baffle, all the mids, and in fact if you make it big enough, all the lows go forwards. As you shrink the baffle size, the frequencies that go forward become smaller and smaller, so you get more omnidirectional response, but obviously that which is going backwards ends up slightly out of phase with that which is going forwards. Now in a room this small where the walls are quite close, it doesn't change things that much, but in a larger room you'll just get a slightly less fatness when the cab is that way versus when the cab is that way. So hence, because we want fatness, it's good for bass, that's the default orientation, but if you turn it like that, it's a bit less fat and a bit less boomy, so both of which are helpful in difficult room acoustics. And the other thing that changes when you bring it vertical, the frequency at which this speaker is supported by boundary reinforcement from the floor goes a little lower, so again you get a bit less fatness. So that, both of these, the boundary reinforcement works to speak frequencies where the wavelength is this length, whilst here this one's working to this wavelength, but this one's working to this wavelength, so a longer frequency wavelength. I think it'd be a quarter wave of that, but essentially vertical is tighter, less fat. Horizontal is fatter and yeah, thicker, bigger. I prefer it horizontal, but if you, which is why it's designed that way, if you run into problems with acoustic issues, turn it vertical and it's a rather neat problem solver. The 210 works like that. The 110, also in our range, similar effects, less extreme because you've only got one speaker, so it's more to do with the tuning frequency of the hybrid resonator changing rather than all the other effects. Yeah, I think we'll keep it short and sweet. Other stuff that I'll just quickly go over, other stuff that makes the 210S and the other 10CR cabs in our range unique and special and different, and this stuff cross-populates to the bass cabs, other bass cabs in our range, the 12XNs and the guitar cabs. We make everything out of thinner, better plywood, so it's light, stiff enough when reinforced the way we do and with braced the way we do, so you end up with something that's lighter. Any resonances that happen at higher frequencies, so they're less problematic, so the tone is better. The cross-bracing reinforcements inside actually help with the tone, as well as allowing us to use lighter materials, so you have something that's nicer to gig with, but the goal has always been tone rather than weight. And in the case of the speakers in here, a 10-inch speaker is not a 10-inch speaker, is not a 10-inch speaker. They vary a huge amount. The reason bassists will tend to group 10-inch speakers as having a sound is because, frankly, a lot of them were very much the same. It was a sort of default way to design a bass guitar speaker, and not a lot of people thought, well, can we do it better, can we do it differently? Because there are lots of parameters that affect the sound of a speaker. An important parameter that affects these is they have 2 to 3 times as much excursion, so that's forward and backward movement, that which pushes air, as typical bass guitar drivers. 2 to 3 times as much excursion means 4 to 9 times as much power handling in the lows. So that's how much more air they can move, how much more amp power they can take in the bass, and what they do beneficially for your sound in a room, because they're working clean. Another unusual feature about these drivers is the cones have very low moving mass, so they have lots of detail in the mid-range and treble. You get quickness, but you don't lose out on the lows, is often a problem with 10-inch drivers. If anything, they sound more like a great 15 with the problems removed. I suppose you could look at them as a great 10 with a different set of problems removed, but I'd say they're more hitting that sort of 15-inch vibe, but with better dispersion, better clarity, better speed. Speed's a bit of a misnomer in audio, but yeah, we'll call it better speed for now, better transient response. And also, as part of how they're designed, they have better dispersion because they have flex designed into the cone, and the central dust cap, that dome in the middle, radiates fairly independently from the rest of the cone, so that gives you better treble response from the middle here, and better dispersion because the highs that are coming from this, it's a smaller area, so it has better dispersion. So yeah, that's some of the unique features of the 10CR cabs in our range, and particularly the 210S, 210ST, tweeted alternative customizable version. And the other thing that I've mentioned a few times, hybrid resonator. This isn't a sealed cab, this isn't a ported cab. Behind it you can see a stack of Big Baby 3 cabs. They are ported cabs in the conventional sense. I mean, there's not a lot that is conventional about them, but they are a ported cab in that they work like you'd expect a ported cab to. This is not a ported cab, but it is also not a sealed cab. It's a hybrid resonator. It's an aperiodic, dual-tuned enclosure. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. It's an unusual design, and it allows us to use a speaker that shouldn't really work with the parameters it does. And the parameters it has, these are the Thiel small parameters that describe its behaviour at low frequencies, allow it to have higher efficiency, more output, and wider bandwidth without losing out on tone. So normally if you took a driver like that and put it in a ported or a sealed cab, it wouldn't sound good on bass. It would have two different sets of problems, be it in a ported cab or a sealed cab, but it just wouldn't work right. This hybrid resonator design allows us to use a speaker with unusual parameters that make it work better for bass and actually allow us to get a lot more efficiency and output, power handling, and tone out of a speaker that feels like a sealed cab but has the efficiency of a great ported cab. So it's an unusual animal. That's enough for now. I could talk about this design for a long time. In retrospect, I should have probably applied for patents for this enclosure design because it was more unique than I realised. But there we are. I didn't. It's out there. I guess you can copy it if you can figure out how to do it properly, but there we go. you're probably better off just buying one from us. They're really rather good, and we build them right and look after you and such like. So there we are, Alex from Barefaced with the 210ST. Next video that I do about bass things, I think I'll show you more about what it can do tonally with some different basses and different EQ and things like that, because I have fixed the head that we have here, new valve in it. They've got a lot more expensive, haven't they? Anyway, until next time, thank you. I've been Alex from Barefaced, and also in the next few videos expect to see some more people and some guitar playing. Apologies I haven't come back at you guitarists with more guitar stuff. We have a lot of guitar things to demo, a lot of cabs, a lot of variants, but I'm not a guitarist, so it's easier for me to step away from building stuff to do this, because I know what I'm going to do quite efficiently, whilst other people are busy building stuff, and I don't want to grab them off our production line. It's not really a line, it's more of a production team, production posse, production party, whatever, to make videos. But we shall get onto that soon. If you are a guitarist thinking about stuff who happens to have got all this way through a bass video because you've got nothing better to do or you're excessively curious, tell us what you want to hear about on the guitar front. That's enough for now. Thank you. Sorry, I keep talking. Goodbye. I've been Alex from Barefaced.